Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 was by far the biggest release in the series, but also probably one of the biggest letdowns according to the community, with only 62% of players giving the game a positive rating on Steam compared to the 86% from Chapter 3. Chapter 4 came with some huge bugs, some of the most anticlimactic character deaths I've ever seen, and my man Pianosaurus being done dirty with only a few seconds of screen time. Fans weren't happy with how some of the game ended up, so what actually happened here? Where did they go wrong, and what could have been done in order to avoid all of this? Well, let's start with the bugs, because if you've already played the game, you've most likely experienced some of these, and there were a lot of them. The most prominent one was definitely the Yarnaby boss fight, because after we meet Yarnaby, we have to sneak around these storage/server rooms, all while avoiding Yarnaby, leading to some pretty tense moments. And this was executed near perfection. They did a really good job on this sequence. But the problem came when Yarnaby's roaming AI came into play, because this is actually new for Poppy's Playtime. Most of the boss fights, they were just scripted chase scenes where you're in a confined space and so you have to run one way. But with Yarnaby's roaming AI, there were a lot of problems. One of them being the one I got on my first playthrough, which was that Yarnaby just didn't spawn. I kept seeing all these hiding spots, wondering what they're supposed to do, because I didn't see a reason to hide. And this might have been caused by the fact that once Yarnaby comes out, you're supposed to immediately run to the left. However, if you run over too fast, it might be what causes Yarnaby not to see you, or even his cutscene doesn't work properly if there's an extra one. But I'm not a bug fixer, so don't hold me to that. But what was probably even worse is that when Yarnaby was there, he was extremely hard to deal with. Sometimes when you go into hiding spots, he'd still find you through the cracks. He was even reported to spawn camp players, almost soft locking them, making this boss fight extremely hard. And it seems like it wasn't just difficult, but also frustrating to deal with. But let's say you got past all of that. When Yarnaby dies, it's the most unexpected, plot-convenient, anticlimactic death you'll ever see. When you finally get out of the area where Yarnaby's roaming, you're led to one final chase scene, just like the first two chapters with Mommy Longlegs and Huggy Wuggy. However, the Yarnaby chase was like 30 seconds long, and the way that he dies is just ridiculous. The thing that you swing off of, he just gets stuck on as if he's a fish on a hook. But the thing is, he didn't need to go for the hook. He could have just jumped down. He's literally a lion. He's got the strength for this. And when this happened, it's so confusing to see how he died. He jumps on the hook. Sure, that's going to cause a lot of piercing pain to the upper part of his mouth. But who cares? That's not going to kill you. But no, just to make it absolutely for sure, he just combusts into flames like he's in a season 1 SpongeBob episode. There was no reason I can see possible for him to just randomly catch on fire. Maybe there is an explanation, but it wasn't made clear at all, which would make the first playthrough a bit confusing for most players. But the thing is, at least Yarnaby got some screen time, and he was pretty scary to deal with at times. But these next two deaths are a huge upset, starting with my man Pianosaurus. He was teased probably the most out of any other character in the whole game until the last two trailers where it focused on other characters. He was found in the ARG, he had his own commercial and jingle, and he even had his own trailer showing his weird and unnatural movements where he seemingly had pain every time he played a key. And when I saw how Pianosaurus died in game, me personally, I was a little relieved because I wouldn't have to deal with him. I was just more immersed in beating the game. However, most fans were upset at the fact that Pianosaurus had huge potential to be a great character, only for him to just die in 2 seconds and we didn't really get any lore on him. But in my opinion, there is one redeemable quality about this. In this scene where we see Pianosaurus, who was presumably going to be one of the main characters in the chapter, just get absolutely bodied by Doughy, this made Doughy a character to be feared, and his twist at the end would just be that much scarier because of how easily he killed Pianosaurus. But, in my opinion, what they could have done to make it perfect would be to give us some sort of chase scene where we have to outrun Pianosaurus, and then some sort of game like the catnap fight where we try to kill him, but when we actually deal the final blow to Pianosaurus, it doesn't kill him. him. And so right before he's about to eat us and we're all out of options, that's when Doughy comes in and picks apart Pianosaurus the same exact way, which would allow us to fear Doughy, and Pianosaurus would have a lot more to do with the chapter and possibly have even more lore. But that's an easy one to go over. The most confusing death in the entire chapter by far was Harley Sawyer, because I'm still confused whether or not he died. I'm like 90% sure, but otherwise I couldn't tell you. Harley was literally made out to be the most powerful character in all of the Poppy Playtime chapters. In the chapter 3 story so far video, we figured out he was watching us the entire time. His trailer showed he had the ability to see through the whole factory. He had a mind that couldn't be broken going through the toughest adversities, and throughout the chapter we see he's toying with us like we're a kind of dog to him. But in the end, where we make it to where his body is stored, we get thrown down by a Harley Sawyer into a room where we need to navigate the Sarleys and find batteries to escape. However, this was the easiest thing in the world, because I soon realized in my playthrough all you really need to do is sprint constantly and they won't hit you. And even if they do hit you, it's not a one-shot kill, so you don't really need to do any hiding or avoiding, and you just kind of run around. But then, at the very end, when Harley dies, I didn't even get to see it, because the game made me think it wasn't over. Because when you take the Omni chip out of the computer, the Harley Sawyer start coming at you, which made me think, oh shoot, I gotta run. But then I hear an explosion, all the Harley Sawyers deactivate, and then just nothing. I was so confused as to whether or not he died here, so I went back in just now to see for myself, and when his whole body explodes, that should be his death, but then he still managed to say, you saved no one. Which makes me think, did he survive that? Did we just give him a digital punch or something? Like, what's going on? And overall, Harley was hyped up to be one of the most powerful villains in the whole series, and he managed to be easier to beat than Baba Chops, which just made this a pretty big letdown, especially for me, because I thought Harley would be one of the best villains in video game history if done correctly. And so, overall, my opinion is that the game was probably rushed. A lot of the chase scenes felt way too short, the deaths seemed to be last-minute additions just to get you to progress, and it doesn't seem there was a lot of player testing and questions being asked to see how the game would look to someone who's playing it for the first time. They should have really taken their time with it, especially with this only coming out exactly a year after the last chapter, but overall, it still does have redeemable qualities like the expanded lore and the deep character of Doughy the Dough-Man. It's just, for this video, I'm focusing on what they could have done better. So let's hope with chapter 5 we get something crazy.